In the bustling streets of Nairobi, Matatu, the lifeblood of public transport, break down almost daily. Engines stall, transmissions fail, and passengers are left stranded on crowded roads. But what if I told you that these constant failures didn't just cause frustration, they sparked one of Africa's most ingenious automotive breakthroughs? Meet the team of engineers and mechanics who took a recurring problem and turned it into a revolutionary solution, a system that allows an engine to be swapped in just 10 minutes. No waiting days for repairs. No expensive downtime. Just efficiency, precision, and ingenuity. It started with observation. Every breakdown told a story. Bolt stripped, parts incompatible, access cramped, downtime expensive. The team realized that traditional engine replacements weren't the problem. The system was. Vehicles were designed for maintenance in controlled factories, not for the fast-paced chaos of urban African streets. So they redesigned everything. Mounts were standardized, components modular, and connectors made accessible. They even engineered a sliding chassis platform that allows mechanics to remove and replace heavy engines with minimal manpower. A process that once took hours, sometimes days, was now achievable in 10. The first demonstration drew curious onlookers. In a crowded Nairobi depot, a Matatu pulled in with a completely dead engine. Within minutes, another engine, prepped and aligned, slid into place. Bolts tightened, connections checked, and in under 10 minutes, the vehicle roared back to life. Crowds erupted. Mechanics documented every move. Engineers calculated tolerances. And social media clips made the rounds, quickly going viral. But the brilliance wasn't just speed. The system was designed for accessibility. Local workshops could replicate the swap system using affordable tools and materials. Mechanics didn't need specialized training beyond understanding the modular setup. Even drivers could perform preliminary checks before a full replacement. The innovation wasn't locked behind patents or expensive equipment. It was meant to spread. The ripple effect was immediate. Matatu operators reported higher uptime, reduced maintenance costs, and fewer lost fares. Commuters experienced fewer delays, and the streets became more predictable, even during peak hours. Meanwhile, international automotive circles started noticing. Engineers in Europe and Asia studied the viral videos, amazed at the efficiency of a low-cost, modular solution developed entirely in the heart of Africa. Traditional workshops and dealerships suddenly had a blueprint for speed, but it was already being implemented locally, faster than anyone could react. And yet, the story wasn't over. The team saw an opportunity to expand. If a 10-minute engine swap could transform Matatu operations, why stop there? Trucks, buses, and even industrial vehicles became potential candidates. The principles of modularity, accessibility, and speed could scale, creating a new standard for vehicle maintenance across the continent. Word of the 10-minute engine swap spread quickly beyond Nairobi. Video clips flooded social media, showing mechanics sliding engines in and out with astonishing precision while onlookers cheered. Rural towns, where breakdowns used to mean hours of waiting and lost business, began adopting the system. Local workshops replicated the modular setups, often improving them with minor tweaks, reinforced mounts, easier access points, and even pre-aligned replacement engines ready to roll. Operators noticed immediate financial impact. A Matatu that once sat idle for a full day could now be back on the road before lunch. Maintenance costs dropped dramatically, fuel efficiency improved because engines were better aligned, and drivers no longer had to beg for expensive towing or long-term garage services. Communities that relied on these vehicles for everything, from school commutes to transporting crops, started seeing real, measurable change. The innovation caught the attention of regional transport authorities. Meetings were held behind closed doors, regulators eager to understand how this system could improve safety, reliability, and efficiency across urban and rural transport networks. Some saw it as a blueprint for modernizing entire fleets, while others worried that traditional dealerships and repair monopolies might lose revenue. Meanwhile, a few international automotive engineers tried to replicate the swap system. They studied videos, schematics, and online demonstrations, but the design was deceptively simple. It relied on deep understanding of local challenges, cramped city streets, uneven roads, limited access to spare parts, knowledge that was almost impossible to simulate outside Africa. Every attempt abroad fell short. Either the parts were too complex or the procedure too slow, proving that this innovation wasn't just engineering brilliance, it was contextual genius. Back in Africa, mechanics and engineers weren't resting. Inspired by the success of the Matatu system, they began experimenting with larger vehicles, cargo trucks, minibuses, and even small industrial machines. The principle was the same: modular, accessible, and designed for speed, but scaled up. By the end of the first year, a handful of garages were capable of swapping engines in buses in under 20 minutes, a feat previously unimaginable. The ripple effect extended beyond transport. Workshops that mastered engine swaps began offering training to apprentices, creating a new generation of skilled mechanics. Communities began seeing indirect benefits: reduced wait times for emergency vehicles, faster delivery of goods to markets, and even increased school attendance as transport became more reliable. And yet, the system remained low cost. No fancy robotics. No million-dollar tools. Just ingenuity, understanding of the problem, and practical engineering applied directly to local conditions. This wasn't about flashy technology, it was about impact. But as the innovation spread, international observers began to notice. Global media outlets ran stories titled "Africa's 10-minute engine swap stuns world" and "Ingenious African mechanics outpace global automakers." Analysts in Europe and North America debated how such a simple, cost-effective solution could bypass decades of corporate research and billions in investment. The question on everyone's mind was no longer if it worked, it was how far this idea could go. Could modular, rapid replacement systems transform not just Matatu, but trucks, buses, and industrial vehicles worldwide? Could it redefine vehicle maintenance in emerging economies? And in the streets of Nairobi, as engines slid into place in under 10 minutes, the answer seemed obvious. Africa had just redefined speed, efficiency, and resilience in transport. The real magic happened when communities began taking ownership of the system. Workshops that once struggled to repair vehicles now became hubs of innovation. Drivers, mechanics, and even students observed the engine swaps, learning the techniques and experimenting with improvements. Some added quick-release harnesses for electrical connections, others reinforced frames for heavier loads, and a few even designed foldable ramps to make engine alignment faster and safer. Word spread beyond urban centers. In remote villages, where a broken Matatu used to mean waiting hours or even days, people now saw vehicles return to the road within minutes. Small business owners could deliver produce before markets closed, school children no longer missed classes due to transport delays, and local clinics ensured that vaccines and medical supplies reached the hardest-to-reach communities on time. International observers began taking notice. Engineers, transport authorities, and NGOs from around the world requested demonstrations. They expected complexity, machinery, or robotics, but what they saw was something astonishingly simple: practical engineering tailored to real-world challenges. The beauty lay in its accessibility. Any competent mechanic with basic tools and training could replicate it. Meanwhile, competition from global automakers intensified. Companies like Ford, Toyota, and Volkswagen dispatched teams to study the system, hoping to understand the secret behind the speed. Yet every attempt to copy it failed. The solution wasn't just technical, it was contextual. Maxwell and the local engineers had designed a system for African streets, African conditions, and African realities. Outside that context, the magic didn't translate. The next phase of innovation came quietly. A few garages began integrating energy-efficient modifications into the swap-ready engines, reducing fuel consumption and emissions. Others experimented with hybrid and electric adaptations, envisioning a future where engine swaps wouldn't just save time, they could help reduce reliance on fossil fuels entirely. Communities began to see broader changes. Roads became less congested because breakdowns no longer blocked traffic. Operators could run more trips per day, increasing earnings. Families could transport goods, water, and resources with unprecedented reliability. And with every engine swap, knowledge spread. Students, apprentices, and curious bystanders absorbed skills that would shape the next generation of mechanics. Even global media couldn't ignore the story. Headlines read, Africa's 10-minute engine swap outpaces global automakers, and ingenious African mechanics revolutionize vehicle maintenance. Analysts scrambled to calculate the potential impact, from increased productivity to reduced operating costs. Yet, no model could fully quantify the social transformation taking place on the ground. As the sun set over Nairobi and workshops powered down for the day, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a faster engine swap. It was a movement, a proof that innovation doesn't always come from billions in R&D, expensive tools, or global factories. It comes from understanding problems, thinking creatively, and building solutions that work for real people in real conditions. And the story was far from over. Maxwell and his team had already begun sketching the next generation, engines prepped for mass modularity, vehicles designed to be swap-ready from the factory, and systems capable of scaling across entire regions. If successful, the 10-minute engine swap wouldn't just change Matatu. It could redefine mobility for Africa and inspire solutions worldwide. As Maxwell and his team refined the system, word spread beyond Kenya. Neighboring countries began sending delegations to observe the workshops in action. Engineers from Uganda, Tanzania, and South Africa studied the modular swap system, taking notes, recording videos, and sharing best practices with local mechanics. Within months, copies of the 10-minute engine swap were being implemented across East Africa, transforming not just Matatu fleets, but minibuses, delivery trucks, and even some industrial vehicles. Communities quickly realized that this wasn't just a technological improvement, it was an economic revolution. Operators could run more trips, farmers could transport larger harvests, and small business owners could expand operations without the previous constraints of downtime or expensive repairs. Rural hospitals received essential supplies reliably, and emergency vehicles reached patients faster than ever. Meanwhile, global attention intensified. Automotive analysts and tech journalists highlighted the simplicity and effectiveness of the system. The question everyone asked was the same: how could a low-budget, locally engineered solution outperform decades of multinational R&D? The answer lay in context. Maxwell's engineers understood the realities of African roads, infrastructure, and resources in a way that no global corporation could replicate. Some workshops began experimenting with innovations that Maxwell hadn't even envisioned. Mechanics added solar-powered tools for engine alignment, lightweight hydraulic jacks for faster lifts, and modular fuel-efficient engine kits. The system became a platform for local ingenuity, giving rise to a new ecosystem of mechanics, engineers, and apprentices empowered to improve mobility for their communities. Back in the cities, operators noticed another shift. Competition had changed. Matatu companies that embraced the system thrived, offering more reliable services and attracting more passengers. Those that ignored it fell behind, losing business to fleets that could operate without extended downtime. The streets themselves became a showcase of efficiency and resilience, with breakdowns no longer paralyzing urban transport. Even as the innovation spread, Maxwell's team continued to think ahead. Discussions began about scaling the system to larger vehicles, cargo trucks, school buses, and even regional transport fleets. The goal was clear: if a 10-minute engine swap could revolutionize Matatu, it could redefine mobility across the continent. The ripple effect extended beyond Africa. Engineers from Asia, Europe, and the Americas watched closely, some attempting to reverse engineer the system, others inspired to rethink vehicle design entirely. And while corporations debated strategy and patents, Maxwell's approach remained elegantly simple: solve the problem where it exists, empower local communities, and scale with practicality, not hype. Communities embraced the change. Apprentices trained under experienced mechanics, new workshops opened, and informal knowledge-sharing networks grew. The 10-minute engine swap had become more than a technique. It had become a movement, a symbol of African ingenuity solving real-world problems at speed and on a budget that the world's largest automakers couldn't touch. As the 10-minute engine swap system gained traction, the ripple effect began, reaching global corporations. Multinational automakers like Ford, Toyota, and Volkswagen watched anxiously as their traditional maintenance models were quietly disrupted. Analysts ran projections, trying to calculate revenue losses and supply chain impacts, but the numbers couldn't capture the real transformation happening on the streets of Africa. In boardrooms thousands of miles away, engineers scrambled to understand how such a simple, low-cost solution could outperform decades of industrial research. Prototypes and simulations failed repeatedly. The problem wasn't the technology, it was the context. Maxwell's system had been designed specifically for African roads, African mechanics, and African realities. Outside of that environment, every attempt to replicate it fell short. Meanwhile, the people on the ground were already reaping the benefits. Matatu operators expanded their fleets, confident that a broken engine no longer meant lost income for days. Rural markets flourished as farmers transported produce efficiently. Clinics and emergency services gained reliability, and students reached schools they had previously missed due to transport delays. Each successful swap reinforced the trust communities had in the system and in the engineers who built it. Innovators began experimenting with upgrades. Some added solar panels to power tools and small auxiliary systems. Others designed pre-aligned engine kits for even faster swaps. Workshops became hubs of ingenuity, mentoring apprentices, sharing techniques, and fostering a new generation of problem solvers who saw opportunity in every breakdown. Global media began to pick up the story. Headlines read, "Africa's ingenious 10-minute engine swap stuns world, and local mechanics outperform global automakers with modular system." Analysts debated whether the approach could be scaled worldwide, but the truth was clear. Africa had designed a system for its realities, and its simplicity was its power. Governments started to take notice. Regional transport authorities saw the potential for safer, more reliable fleets. Policies and regulations began to shift subtly to support workshops adopting the system. International NGOs funded pilot programs to replicate the success in neighboring countries. But Maxwell's vision extended beyond replication. He and his team were already planning the next generation: larger modular vehicles, hybrid and electric engine compatibility, and mobile maintenance hubs capable of serving entire regions. If the 10-minute engine swap had solved the Matatu problem, the next phase could redefine mobility and vehicle independence across the continent. The streets of Nairobi, once plagued by daily breakdowns, had become living proof of ingenuity and adaptability. Every successful engine swap wasn't just a repair, it was empowerment. Communities could move, trade, and grow without relying on outdated systems or expensive infrastructure. And while the world debated patents, and profits, Maxwell's low-cost, locally driven system continued to expand quietly, proving that true innovation doesn't need billions. It needs understanding, creativity, and purpose. By the end of the year, the 10-minute engine swap system had transformed thousands of Matatus, minibuses, and small trucks across East Africa. What began as a solution to constant breakdowns had grown into a movement. Communities empowered, economies boosted, and mobility redefined. Workshops flourished, apprentices gained valuable skills, and operators no longer faced crippling downtime. Farmers reached markets on time, clinics delivered life-saving supplies, and students made it to school every day. Every swap wasn't just a repair, it was progress, independence, and opportunity realized. Global corporations continued to watch, frustrated by their inability to replicate the low-cost, locally engineered system. Analysts admitted that the brilliance of Maxwell's design wasn't in high-tech complexity, it was in understanding real-world problems and solving them elegantly. And Maxwell? He didn't seek fame or accolades. He focused on impact, building solutions that worked, that scaled, and that empowered communities to thrive on their own terms. The 10-minute engine swap wasn't just an invention. It was a testament to ingenuity, resilience, and the transformative power of local innovation. In the end, Africa had shown the world that revolution doesn't always roar. It often arrives quietly, solving the problems that matter most, one engine at a time.